Rise of the Phoenix. We should prepare spiritually and physically for the Great Tribulation. Hosea 12:7. He is a merchant. The balances of deceit are in his hand. He loveth to oppress. Hosea 12:8. And Ephraim said, Yet I am become rich, I have found me out substance. In all my labors they shall find none iniquity in me that were sin. It is my contention that the world's economy is controlled and operated by a group of sorcerer insiders. On September 29, 1876, a group calling itself the Order of File and Claw broke into the Skull and Bones Holy of Holies. In the tomb, they found Lodge Room 324 fitted up in black velvet, even the walls being covered with the material. Upstairs was Lodge Room 322, the Sanctum Sanctorum of the temple, furnished in red velvet with a pentagram on the wall. In the hall are pictures of the founders of Bones at Yale and of members of the society in Germany when the chapter was established here in 1832. There are many economic theories, but I have my own economic theory. I like to call it the fleecing theory of markets. I believe the main mechanism for predicting financial markets, whether commodities, stocks, or bonds, is not the efficient market hypothesis, EMH. The efficient market hypothesis, EMH, states that asset prices fully reflect all available information. A direct implication is that it is impossible to beat the market consistently on a risk-adjusted basis, since market prices should only react to new information or changes in discount rates. The latter may be predictable or unpredictable. My fleecing theory of markets is the following. If you trade any market with only information available to everyone, you will inevitably lose wealth over any extended period of time. The only way you can consistently be successful in any market is by having insider information. You may ask, isn't insider trading illegal? Didn't Martha Stewart go to prison for insider trading? Yes, she did, but that only proves that Martha Stewart isn't a true insider. A true insider wants and has a monopoly on insider trading, meaning they have the power to punish people who attempt to move in on their racket. If you are familiar with financial markets, you know that these markets follow business cycles. Various economies will boom for several years, and then out of nowhere and seemingly for no reason, the same economy will go bust. There have been many different theories about the business cycle, but nobody has been able to come up with a definitive way to time it, probably because the timing of the bust phase of the business cycle depends entirely on when the insiders decide to crash the market. There appears to be no rhyme or reason for the phenomena, but some people have an uncanny ability to time the markets, meaning they get into the markets at the bottom of the boom phase and then leave the markets just before the markets go bust. They must be financial geniuses, or are they? Recently, many of these financial geniuses have been trumpeting their growing concern about the world markets. All of these financial geniuses are giving their own reasons for the coming crash, but they all agree it is imminent. I believe all market crashes are systematic and planned far ahead of time. Why, you may ask? Think about it. You do not have to be a financial genius to understand why certain people may want to crash the economy periodically. Suppose you are an insider. Your family and your insider associates own corporations, companies, businesses, institutions, charities, assets, and even governments all over the world, and you want to keep and control these institutions for generations to come. Now, you recognize that although you may be a genius, your children, your grandchildren, and your descendants probably will not be real geniuses now or ever, but there are real business geniuses continually starting businesses that are competing with your financial interests, and they will eventually end up owning all of your family assets. Why don't you or your surrogates approach these real business geniuses with offers of loans, credit, or any other financial help they may need or want? Now, if these competitors are real geniuses, they probably would not borrow more than they can reasonably repay under normal business conditions. That is why you need to periodically create artificially severe business downturns where you or your surrogates can foreclose on or buy out your competitors for pennies on the dollar. Eventually, All of these real business genius competitors are either working for the insiders, sorcerers, or they end up living under a bridge. The central insider family is the Rothschild family. The Rothschild family has been in the banking business for well over 200 years and probably much longer under different names, and they partially own a business magazine called The Economist with some other insider families. Way back in 1988, The Economist magazine made an interesting prediction. 30 years from now, Americans, Japanese, Europeans, and people in many other rich countries, and some relatively poor ones, will probably be paying for their shopping with the same currency. Prices will be quoted not in dollars, yen, or D-marks, but in, let's say, the phoenix. The phoenix will be favored by companies and shoppers because it will be more convenient than today's national currencies, which by then will seem a quaint cause of much disruption to economic life in the last 20th century. The Economist magazine predicted that there would be a new world currency by 2018. They were off by a few years. I strongly suspect that this prediction made over 30 years ago is really a game plan by the insiders for a future world monetary system. Most international world trade is currently transacted in US dollars, European euros, and Japanese yen. Why would Americans, Japanese, and Europeans suddenly decide to switch to a new world currency? I believe the insiders' game plan is to destroy the dollar, the yen, and the euro in the near future. Unbeknownst to most people, the central banks of the United States, Japan, and Europe are currently creating trillions of new dollars, new yen, and new euros. The central banks are mainly buying government debt with all this new money. But again, I strongly suspect that in the near future, these trillions of new dollars will come flooding into the world markets, thereby creating hyperinflation. But then finally the masses wake up. They become suddenly aware of the fact that inflation is a deliberate policy and will go on endlessly. A breakdown occurs. The crack-up boom appears. Everybody is anxious to swap his money against real goods, no matter whether he needs them or not, no matter how much money he has to pay for them. Within a very short time, within a few weeks or even days, the things which were used as money are no longer used as media of exchange. Before the big game, sports teams will have practice games. Before the start of a shooting war, the Pentagon will conduct war games. I believe that before the coming world economic collapse, the insiders have been conducting practice economic collapses in Argentina during the 1980s and late 1990s, in Zimbabwe between 2000 and 2009, and currently there is hyperinflation in Venezuela. The insiders study these practice economic collapses in order to prepare for the big one. The big one will push the entire world into a new economic world order and a one-world currency. It will probably be a central bank digital currency that will be accepted by all governments around the world. Fortunately for us, we can also study these prior economic collapses and partially prepare ourselves for what is going to come. First, the banks are nearly always closed for a short time before the collapse. The insiders will tell us it's a bank holiday. Usually, when the banks do open, the depositors are only allowed to withdraw a small amount of money every day. All the while, hyperinflation is making the money you have in the bank steadily become more and more worthless. Therefore, we should all have cash on hand, hidden someplace outside the banking system. Immediately after the banks close, we need to buy as much bulk food as we can afford before our cash becomes completely worthless. Buy beans, rice, pasta, canned meat, canned fruit, and canned vegetables. Also, root crops like potatoes, beets, onions, and yams will last several months if they are stored in a cool place like a root cellar, a basement, a crawl space, garage, or even a spare room that is not heated during the cooler parts of the year. Various types of spices and condiments will also last a long time if kept in a cool place. During the final months of the Weimar Republic's hyperinflation, it is estimated that 93% of all income was spent on food. Second, you should have some pool shock on hand in order to help purify water. Also, some type of water filter will also be useful. If the hyperinflation lasts for too long, eventually utility workers and other government workers, including the police, will stop showing up to work because the money is worthless and they are not going to work for free. Therefore, water, sewer, electricity, and other utilities can either work intermittently or not at all for long periods of time. Third, buy a 5-gallon plastic bucket for use as a restroom. If you live in a city and you use a public sewage system, your toilets may stop working. Cross-contamination of food and water by raw sewage will be the greatest danger to your health during a hyperinflation event. If you keep your urine separate from your bowel movements, human waste can be mixed with ashes, sawdust, pine needles, grass, or other types of cellulose. And it will be fairly safe if it's kept outside and isolated from where people are living. After about a year, all the E. coli and other dangerous human bacteria will die off. Fourth, everybody in your family should have warm underwear, socks, gloves, a wool hat, and a sleeping bag. If your electricity goes out for a long period of time during the winter, you may have to camp indoors until things get back to normal. Fifth, if you have taken my previous advice and bought some pre-1965 silver coins or silver and gold bullion coins, I believe you will be able to easily afford some getaway property out in the country during this brief period of hyperinflation because silver and gold will be worth thousands of dollars per ounce. If you own some isolated property outside the big cities, where you can flee until public order is restored, you should probably go. This will be the perfect time to begin separating yourself from Babylon. Finally, when people start going hungry, law and order begins to break down very quickly. Even if all the police stay on duty, there will be riots and other social unrest. Crime will begin to increase dramatically because more and more people will turn to criminal activity and violence in order to meet their basic human needs. Every home should probably have at least one shotgun with a box of birdshot and at least one box of buckshot for home defense. All your preparations will be worthless if criminals can simply come and take your food and supplies from you. I am a Christian, and I intend to help as many people as possible. But the Bible is clear that God expects us to provide for the basic needs of our own family. 1 Timothy 5:8. But if any provide not for his own, and especially for those of his own house, he hath denied the faith and is worse than an infidel. The best preparation for all troubles, whether local or international, is by simply spreading the gospel to all your friends and neighbors. Imagine if everyone living around you was a spirit-filled Christian with a close personal relationship with Jesus Christ. Living in a community of born-again believers is the best protection against troubles of all kinds, physical, mental, and spiritual. If you find these videos educational, please like and subscribe. God bless you. Thanks.